Morning, my dear friends. Sharp Kunja and for happy Sunday. As a thought that's been bothering me. I don't know how to articulate this, but I'm gonna try. You know, I speak a lot about my growing up as a young man, not because I'm I'm stuck in being a young man type thing. I know there are some that will insult me, and I don't want that. I'll try to avoid that as much as possible because my internet trolls are insensitive. Will call me a man child. Will call me a, not top tier guy. We all have all these categories that we place men in, and I guess men also do the same with women, where they place women in various categories. I don't want to be categorized, please. Nyacela, sincerely, can I just be myself? If you don't agree with me, you are more than welcome to share your comments and opinions, and amicably so, respectfully so, and let's debate. Yeah, but respectfully. And I don't mind that, obviously, because this is the whole purpose of this platform, whereby we can have sort of robust debate and criticism, with hoping to achieve clarity around social challenges that we have as a society, that perhaps are not being addressed the way that they should be. I have this thing, this issue that I have. I don't know ukuthi ngingayitackla kanjani, but I believe ukuthi young men are very, very much disadvantaged growing up, guys, under the households and the societies that we have, because see bias, and bias because it's easy to pick on somebody small, somebody young, somebody defenseless. We often say to young people things like, take responsibility for your own actions. You know, don't look for excuses. Don't look for somebody to blame. That Maramoto Apega. Young people are misguided the way that they are. Young people's minds are corrupted the way that they are. Young people are misled by adults. We speak about how young people must be responsible, but we never tell adults that the same thing. Because an adult will probably have something clever to say back. Yeah, but you open the internet, you go onto social media, all that you see is old people, adults, behaving badly, behaving irresponsibly, and directly teaching young people, young men, and indirectly, and young women to do the same thing. And you never hear of, you don't hear as much as preaching that adults should do better. Our prison systems are full of young people. Um, we have corporal punishment, okay, which was not just recently abolished, but before we used to punish young people. But young people don't know what they're doing in many cases. Young people are looking up to adults, and every time you see a young person doing something irresponsible, there's likely an adult that they learned from. We now know that influence is a big thing, right? We've got a whole world that is using influence. Advertising and all of that now is even moving at a slower pace than, Kunjana, influencing. Because influencing is massive, it's big. We get influenced to do various things throughout our lives. Okay? I, for instance, remember, it made me laugh, growing up, even into my adulthood. I remember I started stuttering, you know, and this stuttering thing is because I hung out a lot with a guy, a friend of mine that stutters, you know, and I kind of like got accustomed to it without really thinking about it. I ended up stuttering because I just liked how he speaks, because I watched it a lot. I remember there was a kickboxer movie, Sylvester Stallone, and I think it's Rocky 3, Dolph Lundgren. So there's a part where Dolph Lundgren was running, and the winds are like, he's knocked kneed, make his kiss. And my sister, whilst we were watching this, says, "Wow, that's cute." And my sister's opinion meant a lot to me when I was young because she was already a teenager and I was, younger, 4 years younger. So she was probably like 16 and I was about 12. And so her opinion mattered to me a lot because I looked up to her. So she said, "Wow, that's cute," meaning Dolph Lundgren's jogging with the not knowing kiss kiss. Do you know what? From that day onwards, and it's hard to undo that. It's hard to undo that because, like, my mind, I latched onto this thing as if it's cool to do that. It's cute, and I did that. And I used to run properly. And I found myself stuttering later on in life because I hung around with a guy that stuttered, and I found it quite cool. And mfethu, I remember my lips, ngithanda ukhotha umlomo. Ukuthi ngabona enye out ikhotha umlomo. And my khotha umlomo my pink, 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 pink. So I used to like that, the pink lips, because I used to look up to Michael Jackson. I used to look at Prince. I used to think they're good looking. So I wanted pink lips. So I licked my lips pink. And then my lips ended up being black instead. It says Pila. I had horrible lips for my entire growing up. Like there's so many things that we do as young people who grew up copying about us slightly older, the people that we look up to. So we grew up from, being influenced into whatever direction. That is why it's important to have adults that are correcting us and constantly monitoring and guiding us not to follow into rubbish, follow into bullshit. Excuse my language. And also, speak like that because there's a lot of rap music that I used to listen to. I swear a lot. And in the corporate space where I used to work in the insurance business, sales. So it's kind of cool to speak like that. Which only now later on in life when I'm learning and I've become a Christian and a man of faith. And I'm realizing that I can't be preaching one thing and trying to be a good example and then up on your tuan and using this thing. Because for a long time I've always thought it's cool to speak like that. Yeah, but from the rap culture, and for me, it was not even swearing, it was more of like slang to speak using vulgar language. And in turn, I'm feeling a lot of people are not caring because it didn't have that same kind of impact. So, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that influence is big. People get there's something called adult peer pressure. People get influenced throughout their entire lives. Where do we take responsibilities when we become adults? But when we're young, we need to realize that we absorbed a lot of things from adults and adults who were never ever held accountable. So I'm now saying, guys, before we clamp down hard on youngsters and punish youngsters, let's look at who are the irresponsible adults that are contributing to the moral decay and the misguidance of youngsters around us. And let's be twice as hard. If it was up to me and you'd give me the power, if it was up to me and I could be president for a day, I'll implement some harsh punishments towards adults that are irresponsible and ultimately the cause for misdirection, mistreatment, abuse towards young children, and anything that is done that is wrong to a young person would be paid for in a way that a person that would do something negative towards a young person will pay for it for the rest of their lives, basically. That is how much I have an issue with abantu abadala. Abantu abadala, prisons are empty. Prisons don't have abantu abadala, for instance. It's young people that are in there. Young people that are in there as a direct result of being misguided by adults. How does that make sense? Make it make sense to me. Because the same way that in Twana learns from his father to be a drug dealer, a car thief, that kid, when he goes out and becomes one, his father must also account. Where did this kid learn this? Where did this young man learn this? And then the father must be able to explain that one. And if it's not the father, it's the older brother, or it's the uncle, or it's the boss, in the group of thugs in the community, then so be it. It is always the smaller guys that get taken down. For the first time, we're seeing kingpins being taken down thanks to General Gatlam Corners. Otherwise, for the entire time, prisons have been full of little cheap crooks and thugs, people that still walk across leading. I've been in prison. Abantu prison are petty thieves and petty criminals. When you don't find these guys like serious crimes, which are the actual problem. The drug dealers, you don't get those people in prison. My prison experience was because of my father. My father had stabbed me with a can opener weeks before that. And I'd gotten to a point where I was tired of my father's abuse. He had abused me all my life. I went to social workers, couldn't get help. My father continued to abuse me. And all my efforts to try and kind of like, stop my father from doing what I was doing were unsuccessful. So eventually, when he stabbed me with this can opener, I thought, okay, that's the final straw. That I'm not taking this anymore. I'm gonna stab him back. And I took the same knife a week later or two, and then I stabbed him with that knife because it was a rusted little can opener. I knew I wouldn't kill him, but I just wanted him to feel the pain that he made me feel. And I stabbed him with the same can opener. Now here's the difference: when he opened the case, and he put me in front of a magistrate, I was sentenced to 1 year in prison for stabbing my father with a can opener. And then a couple of years later, I was able to put him in front of a magistrate because the abuse continued to happen. My father abusing me, and this time he had punched me, and then I thought, good, I'm not going to fight back. I'm going to open a case, and I opened the case, had him arrested, and then on the court date, the prosecutor begged me and begged me and begged me to drop the case. But because I'm a good guy and I'm soft like that, I did, which I regret so much. I regret that so much because I had a chance to to have an adult account. I've never seen an adult paying for their actions for hurting a young person. Young people are scarred, young people are damaged, and it's all due to adults. And they've gotten away with it. Now, here's my pain. Here's my gripe. I'm holding on to a past. I'm only holding on to a lack of accountability because I see how it continues to happen. How adults and grown-ups go around crying wolf all the time, whereas they've actually contributed, if not are the main cause for young people's pain, young people's misdirection, young people's misguidance. We all got to a stage where we were rebelling and kicking and clawing, trying to be heard, trying to be seen, or what have we suffered throughout our lives, through our upbringing. But instead, the very same adults, neighbors, and adults around were only happy to say, that's a bad child. To what? To make their children look as if they are better. But then karma has its way. Guess what? A lot of the people that did that to me, their children are fucked up, they're drug addicts, others are dead because of various, whether it's depression, whether it's just a whole lot of things. I'm not happy that it happens. Just I feel like it was deserved to a fair degree. And it continues to happen. I look at Abadala, I was spiteful, looking at a young me, so drowning my sorrows, drinking at a young age so that I can survive my toxic home environment, looking at me, and rather than coming close and trying to find out and giving me an ear and lending a helping hand, they were the ones to throw eggs at me. That is why I like to start conversations around how all these young men, so smart, so intelligent, a lot of them are, have given up on themselves and decide to stand on street corners and smoke yaupo, which is completely destroying them the way it is. But I know that in many of those cases, those young men are helpless, hopeless, and they choose to rather just destroy themselves because they feel like they have nowhere to go. I think the one thing would short is empathy, uthando, the lack of love for me. When I was young, lacked uthando, lacked guidance, lacked attention, and unfortunately, I need to so my mom, for instance, my dad was an alcoholic. My mom was focusing on the part where she felt like she wants to focus on more. And when I left, I was neglected, and then and the only thing I had was groups of gangs. So we see gangster, like gangs of gens that are also in similar situations, and we group together, and mislead and misguide, and then that's how we got into things to trouble, basically, because the street is wrong. Yeah, but civilly is just wrong, leading each other astray. A lot of my friends died. A lot of them are alcoholics, drug addicts, and good many of them are no longer around, and the ones that are around are damaged. Yeah, but I'm blessed with I was able to ukuzilungisa, and ekugcineni I had to fix what I didn't cause. I had to fix myself ukuthi angizidamage. Yeah, but and manje I want to shine the spotlight on this particular subject matter. These young men are victims themselves. So when parents go and cry wolf, ask them how did it get to this in the first place. Young man is only asking, probably in many cases, where's my father? And is asking difficult questions that parents can't answer. And then the young man has got the void and then ends up filling that void with either drugs or alcohol. I'm condoning my actions. Let's try and find the cause. Let's get to the root of the problem rather than addressing the problem when it's in its late stages of manifestation. And perhaps maybe through empathy, through love, through understanding, we can cut it before it actually manifests at its at its core. I don't have all the answers, but I'd like to at least start to have, to shine the spotlight on the fact that young men are also victims themselves. So getting vigilantes like Abu Banban Lava that go around kicking and taking these, imposing more onto their, infringing upon the rights of these young people some more and abusing them further in their situation. But let's try and get a clearer understanding of yini cause, yini isiqalo, so that sikwazi address isiphepho. Mina, I can speak about myself ukuthi mina ngangiphume ekhaya toxic, and I had a bad upbringing in that respect. So how do you then expect me to be good, having come out of a home environment where parents are going through a divorce? As children, we're torn into two. We have to pledge loyalties, either ngapha or ngapha, and the bitterness and the anger and the animosity, you can feel it. The energy is toxic. The home environment is cold. Only the street corners were warm. The validation and the attention besithola kulabahrotman lawa drugs. I was not a smoker, but my friends were, and drinking alcohol, and we were all in it to numb our pains and to escape our realities of the households that we were living in. I know what our parents tried, and unfortunately bazamile, but their efforts were not good enough. In many cases, they were not good enough. It's not my parents that made me the man that I am. When I had to mentors, I had to find father figures in the street. And it's taken 40 years. A good part of my life, most of my life, I lived it misguided and didn't know myself, didn't understand myself. Only now, and I'm only a year and a half sober, and it's going to be through continuous efforts of trying to stay the course and unlearning and cleansing myself of all the rubbish that I've been absorbing all these years, all the toxic bullshit that I've been drinking and basically absorbing throughout my life. We cleanser is going to take literally the rest of my life, every single day, being intentional about cleansing myself. And through those small efforts, I can guarantee you now, if Mina, for instance, and I'm going to encourage I want to every single day do something, take a step to improving myself, every single day, one step. But 5 years, those steps combined will make a significant difference, and I'll be able to sit in front of you, and when I speak, I'll be able to listen to because I'll be a respectable man and a successful man. And that way, I can be a leader, I can be a role model, I can be somebody that young men can look up to and follow in my footsteps, not the bullshit that we were entertaining and following in. I think it's about time we look at how adults behave before siqala ukugxeka ingcusi sishaye ingcusi ukuthi labantwana ukuze babe kanje babhekelela kubani. Influence is the direction in which the world is turning. So let's be mindful and be aware of what we're influencing and what children are being influenced before we can start blaming young people for the way they do things. Remember, the purpose of this exercise is to learn and unlearn, each one teach one. As I said in the beginning, I welcome your comments, I welcome your opinions, and let's share. Thank you very much for listening to my video. This is Happy Sunday.